Hello, and welcome to the Expatty Podcast, where I talk about everything abroad, expat experiences, my experiences, and those of other expats and their experiences living in a foreign country. Well, today's podcast is going to be about my experiences in China. I'm going to actually go through and document in this podcast everything that I did on my Facebook page, Patricia McBride in China, and really give more insight and perspective about all the things that I experienced while living in China. It has been a crazy journey, and this podcast simply is about how I came to the decision to actually go to China. So, the decision to actually move to China was a pretty fast decision, and we made the decision because at the time my husband's job was not going so well. A lot of crazy things happened with that, and we were thinking about maybe going back to Ohio, but not sure what to do. And so my husband just started looking for jobs, and he came across this opportunity to work in China, and he just went for it, and one day he just telling me he applied, and the next day they wanted to know more information, and then they wanted an interview, and then it just kind of gradually happened, and before you knew it, he had a job. And we were like, oh my God, we're moving to China. So I felt like, okay, I'm not working full time. I'm doing my acting thing, and I guess I could try maybe doing it in China, my acting or whatever, and just go for it. Go for the adventure. And so we did. We started selling our things in a garage sale, and it was so funny because when we were selling our things, a lady came who was actually from China to purchase some things, and it was just like a really fun, nice sunny day, and started talking to this lady, and she asked why we were moving, and we told her we were moving to China, and she could not believe it. It was so crazy that these American people were moving to her home country. And so that was fun, and we got some insight from her about living in China, and she thought it would be a great experience for us. And I guess one of the things that you should come to expect from any crazy decision is, hey, go for it. You only live once, and you never know what may come out of the experience. And for those of you who could never do it, I hope that you can live vicariously through my experiences, because there were a lot of things. I documented everything when I moved there. And so remember to always go to Patricia McBride in China on Facebook, and you can scroll down to my very first posts, and you'll see the apartment that we lived in. Now finding the apartment was the hard thing. So when we got there, my husband's job hooked us up with some people. They put us in a hotel, and this was crazy. Like living in a hotel for like a couple weeks, there was nothing on TV, absolutely nothing of interest, because everything was in Chinese. And this is before you had your cell phones where you could watch everything on your phone. So we were very dependent on what was on television for entertainment, just to help pass the time. And the only thing that we saw on TV that we could relate to was Tom and Jerry, because there's no talking, but it's something from America, and we enjoyed it. It's like we literally watched Tom and Jerry all day long to pass the time in this hotel while we went out and looked at different apartments. But the first several apartments we went to look at, they were so unbelievably just disgusting, and I just thought, man, what did we do? What kind of choice did we make to move to China? Are you serious? Like the apartments, they were dusty. The refrigerators were funky as all funk. I mean, like they had not even cleaned out the refrigerators, and they were hot and muggy and just disgusting. And so I thought, this is going to be a disaster living in this country. Well, finally, we came across some newer apartment buildings, some high rises, and they're everywhere in China. Like high rise buildings are just cities and cities of these towering apartments. And so we finally came across an apartment that was within our budget, and we moved in. It was completely furnished, And if you go to Patricia McBride in China, you'll see the first post that I made were pictures of our apartment, and my daughter's sitting there watching television, just kind of taking it all in. And we had this crazy looking furniture. I think we're on the like 30th floor, and we had like this brown, not very modern furniture with these ugly floral curtains. But the view was really nice, and it was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and the bedroom, the curtains were like this blue color. So we ended up finding that there was an IKEA there, so we went and bought some things from IKEA and to try to make it as homey as we could. And the bed, oh my goodness, the bed was literally, it was cardboard. It was hard as a rock on one side, and the other side was just springs. So between the two, we just chose the hard surface, which was no different than sleeping on the floor. You were just a little higher off of the floor. And that was, I don't understand that, how anyone would be expected to live on that. But we did for a year. And we actually ended up having a bathroom that was a normal toilet, but as you'll see later in some of my posts, I even wrote about a few things. When you go to public restrooms, the toilet is completely different. It's literally a hole in the floor, and I didn't know how to use it when I first went there. It's a pretty funny story. I read that if you can, because it's how I kind of found out how to use the toilet in public. But in our home, it was pretty normal. But our kitchen had no like upper cabinets. Everything was really low level, small. You'll see in the picture from our kitchen, it was just very, very basic, not much to go off on. We had this cute little outside patio for a washer. Everything was in Chinese. We had someone come over and tell us what they all meant from my husband's company. So that was nice. And the shower was no showering wall, or like, divider. It was always wet in our bathroom whenever you took a shower. So it was not very comfortable, cozy, but it was, compared to all the other things that we had seen, it was the best option for us. And so we found out, like I said, there was an IKEA, there was a Walmart that had the Chinese version of it, because there were like turtles and snakes and there's all these crazy things that they would sell in this Walmart food buffet. It was very different. And so first moving into the city, it was just very hot and muggy. It was in July, and the heat was overwhelmingly hot. Like you literally would go outside and the heat would hit you like an oven, like in your face, like bam, it's hot. Like you just start sweating. It was very traumatic. And it was the overcast. It was constantly like this gray, reddish overtone in the sky. Like it never looked like a pretty bright, sunny look. So it was a very different experience when we first moved there, but we had to have someone help us with setting up our internet service from my husband's job. We had to use a VPN because you're not allowed to go on websites like Facebook and YouTube. And so as foreigners, we were able to have someone set up a VPN, which showed that we were actually living in the States. Our computer would recognize us as being living in California, and then we could have access to the Facebook and YouTube. And if we got caught by the government, it wasn't a big deal because we were expats, we were foreigners. But if you're a Chinese person caught doing that, you can get a lot of trouble because there's no real freedom to roam the internet as freely as you like over there. And so we had a lot more freedoms, access than the average Chinese person. And a lot of this will come out in my later broadcast. So we finally got set up living in our apartment. I had places where I could walk to. It was called Wanda. It was a mall. It was literally, I would say, a quarter of a mile. I'd walk there, and go and shop and find things that we could eat. But as you'll see from some of my posts, I lost a lot of weight. Couldn't really eat a lot there. The one thing that they did have was KFC and McDonald's. And so we ate out a lot. But cooking at home was very difficult. And my husband started his job. We had to find, transportation for him. We both ended up buying scooters to travel. And I'll have videos and all these things on my podcast that you can see. Just make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you'll be notified whenever I post something new. And it's so great because I'm actually, for the first time, it's 2019, I'm actually going through all of my experiences that I had in China, and I'm actually talking about them now. I had posted about them and actually talking about them and actually speaking to other people that I met in China. It's going to be a lot more insight you'll gather from the experience. And if you're ever considering it, shoot me an email. Let me know if you'd like to maybe go to China for a year to live. It's a very doable, manageable thing to do, but having people who've done it before that you can talk to definitely helps, because when you go to China and you have the people from China telling you, how to do certain things, you're going to get it from their perspective, their point of view. So if you want that American point of view, just, stay tuned on this podcast to ask questions or to see how my experiences were. And so basically that's how we came to live in China, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the year for us. And a lot of things ended up happening. So I hope that you will, stay tuned, listen in on this podcast to learn more about actual things that actually happened while living in China. Read about my educational chairs, how my perspective about education changed just from taking my daughter to her kindergarten and seeing how the parents reacted to their child's education. Those were some really great experiences, I think, that you'll enjoy watching and hearing about. So we'll talk about that in my next podcast. I hope you enjoyed this one, and be sure to subscribe to the Expatty podcast on YouTube, and subscribe to like my Patricia McBride in China to see some of the pictures from my time there. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this, and catch the next episode where I'll go in more detail about some of those specific experiences. You do not want to miss this. All right, talk to you guys soon. Bye.